What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what is really moving it today, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is down 7.47%, 223 the low, 239 the high, and you are seeing a lot of volume, same as yesterday. So 185 million shares being traded, 116 is the average. A couple different things that is affecting the broader market, and of course Lucid is data. So we did have PCE and also Michigan Consumer Sentiment. Big data points, both came in better than anticipated. So in a logical world, this would really move stocks higher, but unfortunately, the market is taking this as a negative because it really does dampen the likelihood of future rate cuts. Now, it looks as though the next cut might be for the September 17th meeting. And even at that stage, there is only a 55.3% likelihood of that occurring, of a 25 basis point cut. So a lot of growth stocks, this would negatively impact them. At the same time though, you did have a little bit of a increase in tensions between the States and China. So it's looking as though we might have another kind of April scenario on our hands unless something does get rectified. But yeah, things don't seem to be jiving all that well. What is rather odd though is Lucid's price action. So there hasn't been any news from Lucid, no SEC filings, no even speculative things to bring up on social media. So it has been very odd. Of course, yesterday we did have that one analyst that's saying some negative comments about Lucid. Really, they did acknowledge that Lucid's ramping up their production, but not to be able to hit their year-end goals. So it's not the best. And they even brought up how Lucid usually does kind of flop on when put under pressure. So it's not the best type of thing. So in reality, it is the macro events that's really affecting Lucid in addition to the actual technicals. So I'll go over that near the end of the video. But as far as right now, shorts are increasing 1.46 million shares. 30.86% of the free float is being shorted. That works out to be 380.55 million shares overall are being shorted. So essentially, it's not shorts. Shorts are not the culprit over the last 2 days. It is some large entity or entities selling. I did kind of allude to, didn't want to spread any FUD, but the only logical one based on the volume yesterday, it's either BlackRock, Vanguard, PIF, it's some big name exiting their position. We just don't know. If it is the PIF, just on a FYI, they do have to submit a Form 4 within 2 business days. So if they did sell essentially yesterday, hypothetical, I don't want to freak anyone out, but hypothetical, they would have to have their Form 4 submitted no later than Monday. So we'll find out at this stage in the game, but nonetheless, with it right now, even at, it looks like 222, institutions are selling for whatever reason, unless there was some magical meetup of all the big institutions and they all decided to say, hey, screw Lucid, let's get out. Maybe that's why. One thing I did see an interesting post on social media, a lot of this sell-off does kind of correlate with Elon's post and him taking a step back from Doge and politics, going to be focusing on Tesla a little bit more. So maybe there's some correlation there, but even looking on the secondary market, you are seeing a ton of selling. Even looking at dark pool is actually relatively quiet, which is rather abnormal, but that does kind of coincide with shorts not really doing too much. So it is just algorithmic trading and institutions truly just selling Lucid. So again, just wanted to kind of break that down, but basically looking at the options, 3.41 million in calls and then 1.05 million in puts. 48% of all the options being done today though are neutral in nature. And the reason why it's neutral is you can't really tell, it's not oriented towards the bid or the ask, so it's hard to tell whether it is a buy or a sell. But you are seeing a lot of volume today in the options. This is different from yesterday. Yesterday we only had 2.6 million, so institutions are playing Lucid a little bit more through options. So I don't know if this is some strategy that they are betting on Lucid. Maybe that was what yesterday's action was. people were betting against Lucid, and then essentially you have today just institutions bringing it down more, something to kind of keep in mind. But aside from all that though, based on this, the bulls still very adamant that it is going to be above 250, bears for it to be sub 2. This is the open interest, so you do have 10,000 at that 250, 36,000 at that 3. So when it comes down to Lucid, if it was to have gone close to that 250, then shorts would have woken up a little bit and tried to suppress it. But this is probably why shorts aren't doing anything, because their institutions are doing all the work, right? They don't have to really do anything. Right now, though, with that 223, it is trading between this S2 and this S3. So 221 is that line in the sand. And if it does break below that, then anticipate kind of the high ones, which would be absolutely insane. But 240 is going to be the next strong target / resistance point. And it kind of did bounce off that general area on a side note, but no new analyst ratings or anything along those lines. No articles even coming out about Lucid, so that's what's making this whole kind of scenario really, really odd. Like, this type of level of sell-off does coincide with like a big institution doing a short report on Lucid, for instance, saying that there's some fraud or whatever else that they feel is happening, but there's been absolutely nothing. So definitely very interesting. As far as on the actual chart, it is below the 50-day moving average, and historically speaking, I'm sure that's adding to Lucid's sell-off, because historically that does result in like a 30% pullback. So that was at 248. So in theory, if that does all come to kind of fruition, and let's say that 30% does hit, then yeah, anticipate kind of that $2 range most likely to be that bouncing off point. But definitely from it bouncing from the highs of $3, that is one insane sell-off. And I think that's just a very frustrating thing with Lucid. I get it. I love the product. This is why I still cover it, but the stock is frustrating as hell, because this type of price action only is advantageous to day traders, swing traders. Because if someone sees this and say, hey, you know what, it goes on a spike, breaks above a lot of the key pivotal moving averages, lasts for roughly about 5 days, and then it retraces. Well, next time it does that, I'm going to lock in profits. I'm going to sell, which adds more just to the overall cycle. So it's a very bad kind of scenario. I think Lucid's kind of stuck in. Moral of the story is Lucid just really needs to kick ass. Analysts brought up a very good point that Lucid historically does flop. Lucid really does need to kick ass. This is the make it or break it year, because if Lucid does really fail to really move higher, then the next kind of issuance that they do, which I do feel is going to be at the tail end of Q3, as I've shared with you, but that's going to cause significant of a ripple effect and potentially even affect the midsize, meaning that they'll need more and more money to get that off the ground. So Lucid really, this is the make it or break it year for Lucid, and who knows? Anything is possible. So hopefully the PIF is not selling. Again, I didn't want to spread any rumors, but it's the only logical thing, because based on just the ownership, there's no other institution that would kind of match anywhere based on the volume aside from the PIF. But unless, like I said, there was that massive meeting of all the big institutions and they all decided to sell Lucid, I'm not sure. So regardless, hopefully everyone has a good weekend. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and get buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.